The Wicked Switch of the West.
Launching in March of 2017, the Nintendo Switch released at a time when Nintendo desperately needed it. They were coming off the back of the Wii U, which had massively underperformed and lost the big N millions in revenue.
The Switch then had to be a success, and it was, and still is. For today, in a departure from our usual launch games coverage, we'll be tackling a system that is still the manufacturer's flagship hardware. But what makes the Switch so appealing?
Well, beyond outstanding first-party support, the system is a hybrid console, meaning it can be played in handheld mode or on a TV via the provided dock. There have been some cheaper SKUs that purely focus on the handheld functionality, and many believe a more powerful version is long overdue, but the Switch's success cannot be denied.
The Nintendo Switch is currently the second best-selling home console of all time at 122.5 million units. But where did it all begin, and with which games did the system launch? This is not them. Today we'll be looking at the European launch lineup of games, and I'll sort of be reviewing them as I go. Are you ready? Then let's do this.
1-2-Switch is the perfect launch game. No, the Metacritic average of 58% may not agree, but as an opportunity to gather friends or family and make them look like absolute tits while making use of the Switch's unique features, it's indispensable. 28 different games are on offer, each of which is demonstrated by a pastel pervert beforehand. The games tend not to run longer than 1 or 2 minutes, but they're varied enough that in the pitched party environment, things won't get boring. There's Quick Draw, where Joy-Con at your side, it's first to fire accurately wins. Samurai Training has one player swing their sword and another attempt to catch it in their hands. In Boxing Gym, you both throw different punches based on what the VO commands.
Be mindful of your surroundings and stand far enough apart so you don't bump into anything, or each other.
Oh yes, we'd hate that, wouldn't we? They don't bump into each other in real boxing. As you can tell from watching this footage, there's not actually a whole lot that happens on the screen, and so instead you're either reacting to audio cues or your opponent's actions, as it says when you start up the game. 1-2-Switch is all about looking each other in the eye as you play, and so ultimately you will get out of this what you put in. As I suggested at the beginning of this entry, the game thrives in a social environment, and as the raucous reaction to two friends battling in a pose-off can testify, it hits its niche right on the head. Aiming to preserve and distribute classic arcade titles to a new and very, very old audience, you're so old. The Arcade Archive series has seen over 200 games re-released under their banner. 5 NEOGEO releases were included in the Switch launch lineup, which I've decided to bundle together here. First up is Metal Slug 3, and if you've played a Metal Slug game before, you'll know what to expect, with plenty of explosions and weapon collecting and rescuing men in their pants. There was a fair bit of slowdown during particularly large explosions, but for the most part it seemed to run okay. The King of Fighters 98 boasts 38 playable characters, and I was just okay at it. There also seemed to be special moves that, try as I might, I was not allowed to pull off. Shock Troopers is a run-and-gun title where you shoot literally everything. I did struggle with the controls, unfortunately, as it locks you in the direction that you begin firing, making it tricky to deal with multiple enemies in a timely fashion. And finally, Waku Waku 7 and World Heroes Perfect are both fighting games presented in very different styles. The former is colourful, absurd, and highly accessible, while the latter is serious and features pixelated blood. So cool. All the titles are presented with different modes, including language options, and seem to be faithful to the original arcade game, so what more can you want, really? A Metacritic average of 71.4% across the 5 titles.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God, I just stop. I want to get off.
Fast RMX absolutely lives up to its name, presenting a near vomit-inducing tour of futuristic locales in aerodynamic Pringles cans that wears its F-Zero and Wipeout inspiration proudly. Each track is littered with boost pickups that'll fill your boost bar, and when it's full and executed at an opportune time, you can near enough escape the confines of the stage entirely. In addition, blue and orange jump pads and strips of tarmac will provide you with a gentle push, by which I mean a massive kick up the arse if you toggle to the right colour in time to use them. It took a minute to get acclimatized, but it ended up being extremely satisfying to switch just in the nick of time. The game does tilt at fairly disorientating angles when going around corners, which did throw me off, especially when combined with the unrelenting speed, but you pass these sections so quickly they rarely outstay their welcome. It's fast, Basically, really fast. Championship mode has you race through a few courses to crown a winner and rewards players with new tracks and vehicles, and hero mode tasks you with finishing in first, but if you boost too much, you'll explode, not unlike MotorStorm. Fast RMX also allows for online and local multiplayer and scored well with critics, earning an average of 81% according to Metacritic. I Am Setsuna is a beautiful story about a man who awakens to find he is now an orange. I Am Setsuna, on the other hand, is a whimsical RPG from Square Enix's Tokyo RPG Factory. Assuming the role of Endir, a member of a tribe of mercenaries, you're hired to kill a girl who is due to turn 18 and become the ritual sacrifice for her village. However, when you arrive at the village and confront the girl, Setsuna, see, there she is, not all is as it seems, and so you must instead combine forces to act as her guardian and pacify the monsters that plague the land. The gameplay is intended to harken back to the golden age of RPGs in the 90s and will be extremely familiar to anyone who enjoyed the genre during that period. Combat is turn-based and uses an ATB or active time battle system, meaning you must all wait your turn to attack, use magic, or consume items. In addition, characters can use Spirit Knight stones for a variety of passive and active bonuses. Unfortunately, this battle system, particularly how repetitive it came to be, was singled out for criticism by reviewers. The game looks really lovely though, with hand-drawn assets and artistry flanking the character models, and the poignant, somber story was widely enjoyed, but I Am Setsuna's dogged determination to emulate 90s game design ultimately dragged down the review average, 75% on Metacritic. Oh god, not again. Listen, I've played Just Dance on the Wii U, I've played Just Dance 2014 on the PS4. What could 3 years of innovation have possibly produced? Well, a number of distinct modes, actually. You'll still be prancing about and following vague instructions while dance gods put you to shame, but this time you can do so with thousands of other players in real time via World Dance Floor, and you can even prevent an alien invasion by dancing well enough to fill a bar. Sweat playlists allow you to burn calories and work out, and the playlist once again contains a smorgasbord of musical numbers, everything from Don't Stop Me Now to DNCE's Cake by the Ocean. You can even use the game's companion app to act as a Joy-Con should you wish, but, and say it with me now, you'll only get out of Just Dance what you put into it. And yes, I know I said that about 1-2-switch at the start in a positive way, but it's Just Dance, come on, give me a break. Will you really give it your all, throwing shapes and busting grooves? Or will you sit at your desk, wondering what you should have for dinner, idly twirling the Joy-Con in your hand? You naturally get fewer points via the latter method, but hey, I'm a level 2 dancer now, and nobody can take that away from me. A 71% average on Metacritic, and Just Dance 2017 even won Favourite Video Game at the 2017 Kids' Choice Awards, proving beyond any doubt that children are stupid. The correct winner for that year was, of course, Troll and I.
Smells like both to me.
If I hear that one more time.
I'm afraid you will.
New Frontier Days Founding Pioneers is a farming simulator combined with all the fun of a base-building RTS. You begin with a pioneer center and a couple of villages with the aim of expanding your settlement, increasing your citizen count, and keeping your people happy. You'll do this by chopping down trees, planting crops, mining stone, and using these to construct specialist buildings like sawmills and advancing the age, i.e. jumping forwards a technological step. It struck me as very similar to Age of Empires if Age of Empires only had you building a settlement and not stabbing people on an industrial scale. It does feel quite budget, however. The music loops tirelessly, the anime waifu talking through proceedings banters with you in a way that feels forced, and the menus are big with lots of buttons. Some of the menus were a little confusing too, as despite the size of the buttons, sometimes they could only be pressed in conjunction with something else, like having a settler already selected, and it wasn't always obvious. Despite this, however, I could see myself quite easily being consumed by it, as once you settle into a groove and routine, time starts to pass faster than you realise. It is bloody noisy though, almost a constant assault of sound as the music melds with the hum of industry. It's just alright really, and this was reflected in the Metacritic average that settled on 52%. Oh yeah, here we go, but board game time, really? Board game time? Do you think maybe we've taken, has it gone, surely at the very least, if there's no sports, it doesn't... We sold all the shirts, though. We're getting more... There's more? God's sake. Just so tired. This is Othello, and no, it's not Shakespeare, but rather a video game adaptation of an 1883 strategy board game for 2 players played on an 8x8 uncheckered board and also known as Reversi. I have never heard of this board game, so I went in completely blind, and from what I can gather, you place discs with the aim of overturning your opponent's discs and having the most discs in your colour come the end of the game. I just picked whichever tile appeared to flip the largest amount of discs, but I still lost on the easiest difficulty. Wikipedia tells me any disc of the opponent's colour that are in a straight line and bounded by the disc just placed and another disc of the current player's colour are turned over to the current player's colour. Does that clear things up? There is certainly an adrenaline rush like no other when you manage to flip 5 or more discs, and so I'm officially campaigning for Othello to become an esport immediately. For fun, I played a game on the hardest difficulty where I truly learned that there is actually a skill element to the game. I was outclassed by the AI at every turn, forced down a path where I either couldn't play at all or could only take 1 counter. Brutal. 55% on Metacritic, which is incorrect. This is one of the best games ever made. Shovel Knight is platforming royalty. The NES-era inspired side-scroller blew critics and players away upon its initial release in 2014 after a period of crowdfunding, and it's cited by some as one of the best games of all time. This release, Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, is the full game and contains the original campaign, here known as Shovel of Hope, as well as the Plague of Shadows, Spectre of Torment, and King of Cards campaigns, and the Shovel Knight Showdown multiplayer fighting game. It's incredible value then, and allows players to experience knights with different power sets and maneuverability, and also stories set across the Shovel Knight timeline. As a side-scroller at a very base level, you'll be running to the right, jumping, and attacking enemies. Shovel Knight himself uses his trusty shovel to dispatch foes and can bounce on their heads to reach new heights. Plague Knight concocts bombs, one of which allows him to launch into the air, and Spectre Knight wields a scythe that can both attack foes and zip towards and past them to reach other areas. Each of the knights presents a wholly different challenge, essentially, and a welcome one. And beyond the near-perfect platforming is the game's presentation. A gorgeous callback to classic titles. Everything from the visuals to the music and sound effects are caringly put together, a real love letter to retro gaming. The 6th Axis claimed Shovel Knight Treasure Hunt was worth its weight in gold, with the review average landing on a lofty 91%. The 6th title in Activision's Toys to Life Come the Brutal Murder of Spyro the Dragon series, Skylanders Imaginators once again asks you very kindly to ask your parents very kindly for plastic monsters with computer chips in their feet. Mercifully, this was how I learned that the Skylander figures are forwards compatible, meaning that I could reuse my max-level, hat-wearing 15-hour playtime toys from the Wii U launch games video. Hooray! This time, however, instead of using the USB portal, you simply tap the toy on one of the Joy-Con sticks. Ancients used mind magic to create everything in existence, but the magic has reawakened and someone's using it to make monsters instead. How dastardly, we can't have that. The levels are once again very simple affairs, usually involving a bit of combat and some mild puzzle solving. They also contain Imaginite chests, which, depending on the rarity, hold randomized loot. Ladies and gentlemen and others, the pioneers at Activision have created baby's first loot crate. Congratulations guys, we knew you could do it. I did feel a bit more engaged with this one, as efforts have clearly been made to make characters more chatty. The hideous abomination once known as Spyro the Dragon stops in to quip from time to time, for example. However, my forwards compatible figures weren't good enough for certain areas, effectively locking off portions of the game entirely. Also, I got stuck in the floor. 72% on Metacritic, with Nintendo World Report saying this is a good time, even if it doesn't match the highs of past entries in the series. Snipperclips Cut It Out Together is a delightfully charming co-op puzzler where you play as up to 4 sentient paper condom monsters to overcome a variety of challenges. The snipper and clips part of the title applies to how you interact with your fellow players, or your fellow character if you're playing alone. By rotating, crouching, or jumping when pressing the snip button, you'll take a chunk out of them, creating a unique shape for each puzzle solution. Some will require you to simply fit within a certain mold, others will have you snip away at a player until only a sharp point remains and then have them jump on your head in order to pop balloons. And more advanced stages see a bucket-shaped sentient paper condom monster slowly rotate to safely deliver an egg. Some of the puzzles are devilishly clever while retaining incredibly simple solutions, and pair with the cutesy presentation and music to create a game that's easily accessible for players of all skill levels. It was infinitely more time-consuming and challenging in single player, with a lot of the fun sucked out when having to switch between the beasts in puzzles that required time-sensitive solutions, and it doesn't boast the longest runtime from start to finish, but as a multiplayer pick-up-and-play portable puzzler, it ranks amongst the very best as far as I'm concerned. Adorably fun to watch, said IGN in their Snipperclips review, with the Metacritic average landing on 80%. Super Bomberman R was, at the time, the first entry in the legendary franchise in 7 long years. Bomber fans, as I've so cleverly decided to refer to them, were likely feeling a little explosion-deprived at this point, so what did they get? Multiplayer, and a whole lot of cutscene. Emperor Bugler has resurrected the 5 dastardly bombers, and it's left to the 8 heroic Bomberman brothers to foil his dastardly plan. This cutscene, while charmingly presented, felt like it would never end, and reveals a depth of characterization for each of the Bombermen that, as an outside observer of the series, was completely baffling. Just listen to this. The eldest and most disciplined of the brothers tries getting his younger siblings to train, but to no avail. Black is lazy and egocentric, Pink is more concerned about fashion and gossip, Blue sleeps all day, Red is hot-tempered, Yellow is overly naive and innocent, Aqua hates violence, and Green is a manipulative sneak who deceives everyone. Mad, right? I mean, I applaud them for going this hard, but it's entirely unnecessary to encourage emotional connections with one of these characters when gameplay-wise you're still doing what you've always been doing in these games. Navigating a maze, placing bombs, and hiding from the blast in an attempt to mortally wound your enemies. Sometimes you'll have switches to press before being allowed to leave, but that's your lot really. It's Bomberman, essentially, and fun skins aside, it'll likely only truly appeal to fans of the series. 62% on Metacritic. Here it is, the big flagship launch game for the Nintendo Switch. An amnesiac Link awakened in a cave retrieves the Sheikah Slate and ventures out on a non-linear adventure where, within reason, players can pretty much go wherever they want at any time. The end goal is, of course, to prevent Calamity Ganon from ending the world, business as usual then, but the focus on player agency isn't the only new trick Breath of the Wild has up its sleeve. For starters, you'll enter shrines to unlock powers for your Sheikah Slate, including the likes of Magnesis, Remote Bombs, and Stasis. When used in conjunction with the open world and the aforementioned intent to let players do as they please, the game truly flourishes. It rewards experimentation and exploration, particularly in regards to its physics engine, resulting in a Breath of the Wild taking adventure, and some absolutely insane speedrun tactics. You'll complete quests for locals, collect cooking ingredients for sustenance and temporary buffs like surviving longer in harsh conditions. Weapons can be scavenged from almost anywhere but degrade over time, and the paraglider, particularly in its first proper usage, presents a view of the game's world in all its gorgeous glory. It's also technically impressive, running with next to no hiccups on the Switch, a stark contrast to the open worlds we've seen since Pokemon. It can be a haunting, even daunting experience, but in the words of our beloved Philip J. Reed, it's a vast canvas upon which players can paint their own adventure. And it easily cements itself as one of the greatest video games of all time. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild received universal critical acclaim with a 97% Metacritic average. Voez, or Voez if you want to get incorrect about this, is a rhythm action title that both baffled and impressed me. Originally released on iOS and Android, the anime-style opening would have you believe it to be some kind of visual novel at the very least, but instead you'll tap, slide, and perform other gestures to hit the notes as they come towards you. It really is a visual treat as the colours and lines dance around in minimalistic fashion while you successfully hit the notes, but unfortunately it's only playable in handheld mode, so I'm not actually able to show you footage of me playing any of the songs, as you can probably tell. Instead, I had to start a song, pop it in the dock, and capture gameplay of me missing every single note, which is, to be fair, practically what ended up happening anyway. In an interesting twist, you'll unlock diary entries as you complete various songs, revealing art and episodes of the game's story. I say story, but it's more a selection of fragmented tidbits regarding members of the Voez, or Voez if you want to go to the brothers, band and their lives. An interesting take, certainly, but an approach that's a bit too artistic and whimsical for my simple contrabass sensibilities. There are tons of songs to choose from that vary wildly in difficulty, and just for fun, I chose one of the hardest, look at the state of this. How on earth can anyone match the speed of these notes? 81% on Metacritic, with Nintendo Life calling Voez a beautiful rhythm game with a generous supply of songs. Are you the first time to play this game? What? Are you the first time to play this game? Yes, it's now time for Vroom in the Night Sky, a truly bizarre video game where it seems developer Poisoft fed the entire script through Google Translate. It's an action game, apparently, but the only action on offer is flying around bland, featureless environments through rings to collect stars and stardust on a magical motorcycle. You can use the stardust to purchase new vehicles, at which point you will have buyed the bike, and it might just be ideal for magical girls to step up. There is a rival magical girl who aims to steal the stardust from under you and talks really weird trash, but the Joy-Con vibration rattled my entire nervous system. It's incredibly slow and tedious, and my god, the sound. It's just this, incessantly. When I took a moment to try and decipher this end-level menu, my bike crashed in the distance, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't wish it took me with it. What else? I tried to slam into buildings and got docked points. The interior of this stadium is just a flat texture and I can't get anywhere near it. And, oh yeah, it's one of the worst reviewed games of all time, with a review average of just 17%, 17 on Metacritic. Utterly baffling from top to bottom, it's a miracle Vroom in the Night Sky even got past the pitch stage, let alone entered production, let alone got released, let alone made it onto store shelves alongside Breath of the Flipping Wild. Simply atrocious.
And that 17% brings the total average of the Switch's launch lineup to 69.65%. And there we have it, every single European launch title sort of reviewed in 2023. Were there any among them that were your favourites? Please stop shouting about Breath of the Wild, I can't hear myself think. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you. Why not follow me on Twitter to keep up to date with future videos in this series? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video around. There's tons of amazing stuff on TripleJump. Go check it out now, please, if you would mind. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye everybody. Bye.